It's not in their blood, it's in America's. I'm talking about racism, and it's killing black Americans everywhere. Check it out, leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. To call the Republican Party a death cult is almost an understatement. I mean, whether it's tearing children from their families and letting many of them die, we've had any number of children die, immigrants' children die, in the hands of Donald Trump's ICE, or promoting policies that caused nearly 200,000 Americans so far to die from this virus, or encouraging deadly violence against people protesting racism. Trump and the GOP are all in on violence and brutality and death. And the question is, are Americans going to wake up? The other thing I wanted to rant about for just a minute, and then I'll get to your calls. This story, Propublica, a great organization. They do marvelous, extraordinary investigative journalism. They've got an app, by the way, for the iPhone. I assume they have one for Android as well. That's a great little news app. They just did a massive investigation across the United States and found that black people are 3 times more likely to have a limb amputated because of diabetes than white people. Now, what this is pointing to, and maybe I'm just hypersensitive to this right now because I'm writing a book about the hidden history of healthcare that'll be out next fall, but and I keep encountering this in all the research I'm doing. I point back to April 6th, when all the media announced the research that found that black people were far more likely, almost twice as likely, as white people to die from COVID-19. And that was the point at which all of a sudden the Trump administration, the right-wing think tanks, Freedom Works, all these other groups, the Chamber of Commerce, they all started saying, hey, time to open America back up. It's only black people dying. And what gets lost in this conversation, and I think is the really important point to make, is black people are more than twice as likely to die from everything. They're more likely to die from cancer. They're more likely to die from heart disease. They're more likely to die from 3 times more likely to lose a limb to diabetes, more likely to die or become blind from diabetes. Does it have anything to do with genetics? No. Other than the impact of having your genetics visible in as much as your skin is dark. That's it. There is no, health-wise genetic reason for this, that black people die at a higher rate from heart disease. They're about the only condition that black people are more likely to have than white people is sickle cell anemia. And sickle cell anemia is not associated with any of these things. And that's it. The simple fact of the matter is that, it wasn't until the 1960s that most black people in America could even get admitted to a hospital. African Americans in this country, died with serious diseases at home. I just finished researching and wrote this mind-boggling chapter about Medicare, how when LBJ passed Medicare in 1967, and they put it into place in 9 months. And during that time, virtually every hospital in America was segregated. And across the South, there were many hospitals that just, period, flat out didn't take black people. And just go home and die, sorry. And even if you did go to a hospital that took black people, you had to wait until the doctors were done serving all the white people, which sometimes took a couple of days. And when they passed Medicare, the Johnson administration surreptitiously created an alliance with a bunch of civil rights groups, including SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and the NAACP. And they had people going into these hospitals to find out if they were segregated or not, because the law said you can't get Medicare money if you're still segregated. And you had 10,000 hospitals that were segregated in the United States. They desegregated every hospital in America in less than 1 year. And how did they do it? They said, hey, you want the money? Old people are very expensive. They were as much as 50% of the budgets of some of these hospitals within a year or two. But that's the one great leap forward we have had in my lifetime in terms of medical care for African Americans. But in every other regard, black Americans are less likely to get painkillers at the same level as white Americans. They're less likely to get chemo. They're less likely to get treatments for heart disease. They're less likely to get treatment for diabetes, and particularly aggressive treatment or any kind of treatment that requires regular monitoring. And this all has to do with racism in the system and the racist assumptions that get built into us by our culture, like the assumption that black people don't experience pain like white people do, which is complete nonsense. I shouldn't even have to say that. Except literally, studies done 2 years ago in hospitals found that black people got fewer pain medications than white people. So when they talk about black people dying at disproportionate rates from COVID, they really need to be pointing out that it's not just COVID. And by the way, that might scare some white people, because it's not that COVID kills black people. It's that COVID kills anybody who gets it, or has the potential to, certainly, particularly if they're suffering from any kind of medical condition. And black people are more likely to be suffering from those conditions as a result of poverty, but most importantly, racism. Even wealthy black people get worse treatment in our healthcare system than poor white people.